If you've been feeling like life has been running you instead of the other way around, this video is for you. I know it can be such a challenge trying to create that sacred space to be able to take care of yourself so you can show up feeling good. And it can be just one of those challenges that you find yourself failing, struggling with, coming back to all over again, time and time again. But I just think that if we take a beat and we take a pause, we'll actually see that we need to do something different. And so in today's video, I'm going to be unpacking how you can create a self-care routine that feels doable, because that's the key. As we're diving into unpacking, I'm not saying that I know everything, but here's what I do know. You've probably already tried to create a self-care routine and it did not go well. There may have been many reasons. I actually was taking notes over here about my own journey with creating a self-care routine, the highs and the lows. And I also took some notes over here for some of the women that I've coached over the years that they've struggled with, so that I can give you a pretty well-rounded perspective. So again, you can implement this into your own self-care routine and make it sustainable. Some of the reasons that you probably failed was because of time, energy, and maybe you were just trusting the process. Now, when I say trusting the process, I'm not saying trusting the process of someone else, because I've fallen down that rabbit hole. A lot of women that come to me, they're like, man, I did all the things that the girlies was saying and I still could not keep it up. And I felt disappointed in myself. Listen, been there, even as a therapist. And it's important to know that nothing is wrong with you. It's just important to recognize that trusting the process is A1. I'm all for that. But trusting somebody else's process, yeah, that's when we get a little dicey. So it's important to know that nothing is wrong with you. It's just about saying, how can I actually create a self-care routine that is personalized for me? And because I'm so passionate, I'm hosting a Create Your Self-Care Plan workshop, one that feels real, authentic, and specifically catered to you. You can check the description box below for all of the details. I'm excited to see you there. But let's keep on unpacking, because we still need to talk about how to create a self-care plan for you. The process that I start with myself and that I start with my clients is to redefine what self-care means to you. That's the first thing that I put there, because a lot of times we are fed so much information on self-care that it can be so overwhelming, and it just looks like the same content over and over and over again, just regurgitated and packaged differently. I know you know what I mean. If you just do a little scroll on your timeline and you type in self-care, it looks all the same. And that's really the issue, because self-care is not a one size fits all. If I'm watching someone who doesn't have any kids, they taking an hour and a half, bath, shower, many products, and I try to go do that with 3 kids, yeah, I'm going to feel defeated every time. I'm going to feel frustrated with myself and also with my kids, because that type of self-care does not fit me. So following the girlies is great. I think some of them are great inspiration. I'm like, ooh, that look good. Let me try to add a little bit of that into my own routine. But trying to create something that looks exactly like someone else's and apply it to you, yeah, that's not going to always work. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Real self-care starts with knowing yourself. Self-care. You get that? Self-care. And so it's important to ask yourself, what drains you? What leaves you drained? If you don't know what is actually draining you in your life, how are you going to replenish yourself? How are you going to select the right self-care activities, hobbies in order to replenish you? That leads me to the second question that you got to ask yourself. What replenishes you? If you don't know what replenishes you and you just grabbing from here and here, you're grabbing straws. So of course it's going to feel unrealistic. It's not going to be something that you can keep up a long time, because that connection that needs to be with yourself is just not there. I enjoy cooking, right? But does it necessarily replenish me? Absolutely not. It's not something that does that for me. So I'm never going to just say, okay, a part of my self-care routine is to go cook a 3-course meal. That's just not me. Anime is something that I absolutely love. And so if I need to replenish myself and really just take some time apart from everybody after giving and giving and giving, anime is going to be on my list almost every time. So it's important to be able to say, hey, just because it doesn't look like that for somebody else doesn't mean that it's not good for me. Some people may not say anime as they self-care. it is for me. The second thing that I want to share with you is leaving survival mode. I hear so many women talk about how they're drained, how they're giving, how they feel like they're just barely getting through the day, and how they're not really looking forward to the next day. And they don't necessarily say they're in survival mode, but that's survival mode. The reason why they don't name it as survival mode is because no one has really told them that it's survival mode. You probably grew up in an environment where everybody's hustling. You do the 9 to 5. At the end of the day, if you don't have any energy left, you don't have anything left to give, that's a good thing. That means you gave everything you had throughout the day. You were productive, you were busy. And so, yeah, it's like a badge of honor to be completely depleted at nighttime. And I used to wear that badge faithfully until I was like, wait a minute, this is not something that I want to keep doing. I didn't necessarily know how to change it at that time. I do now, and I help other women do it, but it's not something that I knew how to do at that time. And so it's important to be truthful with yourself and really understand that I'm in survival mode. It's not a place that I want to stay, but I can't keep pouring for an empty cup. I can't keep pushing myself because that's where stress, illnesses start to come. And so when people are trying to say, hey, I need to practice self-care, they're being denied, they're getting that look, they're made to feel guilty and selfish, all because the narrative for so long has been productive, being busy. You don't need to take care of yourself. Putting yourself last is something that's amazing. It's not at all. So it's important to name it so that you can then begin to create that shift for yourself with creating a self-care routine. The next thing that I want to share, I put an asterisk mark because this is something that I hear and that I even struggle with also myself, and that is start small so that you can build consistency. We be trying to, and I say we be trying to say, you know what, I'm going to build out my whole self-care routine. I'm going to journal for an hour. I'm going to meditate for an hour. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to power walk. I'm going to overhaul my whole eating plan. No sweets, no sugars, no sodas. And then you know what happens, right? Come February or whenever you try to start it, it don't last long. Why? Because there wasn't enough time for you to build it as a habit, right? It takes 90 days, sometimes even longer, to actually build a habit. So if you start overcommitting to all of these habits and these behavior shifts, mind you, they could probably be real great, okay? Because I'm not going to hold you and say, oh, all those things that I just talked about aren't great. They're beautiful. They will probably transform you inner and outwardly, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically. The thing is that you won't see those results if you can't sustain it. And so it's so important to make sure that when you're creating your self-care plan, that you're not overcommitting yourself so that then it feels like a chore. So after doing all the things throughout the whole day, man, now I got to do something else? Nah, I'm not going to do that. It don't happen. It just don't. So it's important to say, I'm going to start small so that I can build my confidence, build the habit so that I can also feel confident about adding more to it. I can take these small wins and turn them into bigger wins, into longer wins, and really create the overall goal. And that's to become a better version of yourself. That's to take care of yourself, not to add something else to your to-do list. You feeling me? Let me know down in the comments below if anything that I'm saying is resonating with you. Now I want you to dream a little bit. I want you to put your thinking cap on, take your journal out, and I want you to ask yourself, what would your future self thank you for today? What can I do right now that my future self would be thankful for? Sometimes it's drinking water. Sometimes it's meditation. Sometimes it's reading a scripture. Sometimes it's taking a walk. It might be so easy to put off my needs in the present because I'm like, oh, I'll just get to it later, which I'm sure so many of us have told ourselves that, oh, I'll get to that later, but then later never comes. And so if I'm able to say to myself, okay, well, what would my future self really feel like if I just kept putting off every day, telling myself I'll get to it later? That future self is a burnt out one, right? Been there. So when you're dreaming and journaling about this, I want you to think about aligning with your future future self, whether that's a more calm version of you, a more grounded version of you, right? A more stress-free, maybe a more organized version of you. Every boundary, every pause, every step that I'm taking is so that I can be aligned with that future self, right? So it's important to have that locked away in the back of your mind. For me, I like to practice with weekly journaling to make sure that I'm keeping myself in alignment, that I'm having a checks and balances with myself. I also have accountability people in my life that I'm so thankful for. And so it's important to think about those things. So I've given you a lot of little nuggets for you to think about, some journaling prompts, some barriers that may be stopping you from creating your self-care routine. So I want to challenge you to ask yourself, what is one thing that you can do today that will align with that future self? If creating your own self-care routine excites you and you want to dive deeper, then I want to encourage you to check out my Create Your Self-Care Plan workshop down in the description box below, where we'll map out your self-care routine, one that's not just checking off to-do lists, but one that you feel confident in, that you can tweak so that it can be sustainable for you and your life. I also believe that these videos right here will also help you out on your journey. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye.